Hello and welcome to my kitchen. I'm Judith, and today I'm going to do a stew. Now we all know beef stew. This one is going to have a slightly different flavor. And if you've watched my videos, you know I really like Moroccan flavors. So I do have some stew meat, beef stew meat, but the main meat that's going in this one is beef heart. And we have onion, ginger, lemon, some dried apricots. Now, you want to try and find non-sulfured apricots, although most dried apricots you will find with sulfites in them. I have seen that there is a way to remove the sulfites, but I don't know if I want to try it because it involves hydrogen peroxide. Not many people are really sensitive to the sulfites, but if you know someone that is, or you're worried someone might be, leave those out or replace them with canned. And since these are in syrup, if you can find ones in water, that would be better, but just rinse them off really well and add them a lot later in the process. And this is bone broth. You could use just regular stock, but bone broth would make it just so much yummier. And we have for seasonings, and we don't need a whole lot in this one. We have a little bit of sea salt, and we have some cloves, cardamom, cayenne, and I do cut my cayenne way down because as you know, I'm not that good with spicy, and ground cinnamon. So what I have done, and you know with my liver and that, I do not soak it in the milk, as many people do. This has been soaked, not for long, like a couple of hours maybe, with apple cider vinegar to just help to remove some of the strong blood taste. You can leave that step out if you want, or you can do it overnight. I just wanted to try it. I've never soaked it in apple cider vinegar before, so I wanted to give it a try. So first thing we have to do, but we're obviously going to rinse that off, is cut up our onions and our ginger and get it cooking. Back in a minute. Alright, so we're going to have a heavy pan, I've got a cast iron here, to brown our meat. So typically this dish is made with ghee, which is clarified butter, or schmaltz, which is chicken fat, or lard. I have none of the above. So I'm going to use just oil and maybe some butter. So in this pan, I've got it getting it really hot because we want to sear our meat. And I have added a little bit of oil. Now I am going to have to do this in batches because I have so much meat. I have a pound of beef heart and a half a pound of beef stew meat. Okay, pan is smoking. And again, don't put too much in the pan or you end up stewing it rather than searing it. If your pan is hot enough, this should literally take only a few minutes from start to finish. And you should not have to pry your meat off the pan. Once it's seared, it will release fairly easily. temperature. It shouldn't take very long. There we go. Set the meat aside for just a bit. And we're going to trade places with our Dutch oven. And our next step is to saute our onions and ginger. So typically this would be done with ghee, which is clarified butter, or schmaltz, which is chicken fat, or lard. None of which I have in the house. So we're going to use a little bit of oil. Well, that's just avocado oil. And some butter. Now, I know I could have made clarified butter, but I'm too lazy. The only real difference between melting your own butter and using clarified butter is that the clarified butter does not have the milk fats in it, and that's what will burn if you're not careful. So I have one yellow onion and about a tablespoon of chopped ginger. And the burner is still hot from searing the meat. Hopefully it cools down enough that we're not going to burn anything. So you want to do this on a fairly low heat because you just want everything to go translucent and beautiful. You don't want to brown the onions. And that's going to take a few minutes. And by the way, keep the pan you seared your beef in, because we are going to deglaze it with some bone broth, or you can just use beef stock if you wanted, and add that into the stew. So while we wait for this, let's just enjoy the aroma. Oh, ginger and onions together smells so good. Okay, well, I was wrong. My pan was a little too warm. That burner was still hot. Whatever. It's probably not going to be noticeable. So now we're going to add our spices. And I have cayenne, cardamom, cinnamon, and cloves. Mix those in. Smells wonderful. Just let that cook for a minute. And we're heating up our other pan so that we can deglaze it. So we're going to give that a couple of minutes to cook. So now we're going to add our meat and stir that in, because we want to get the meat well coated with the spices. And as soon as we deglaze our pan here, so deglaze your pan that you seared the meat in with half your bone broth. And don't forget to scrape up all the crunchy goodness on the bottom. And add the rest of the bone broth in with the meat. And a good pinch of salt. preferably sea salt. Stir around. Now we need to bring it up to a boil. And then we'll cover it and simmer it for an hour and a half. But we do still have other things to add. And we've got a good bubble going there. So I just want to give it a little stir. Make sure everything's covered with the, well, not covered, but at least in the liquid. No bits sticking too far above. We're going to put the lid on, turn the heat down, and we're going to let it simmer for an hour and a half. And don't forget to add your lemon. Now, I remember when I first made this, I added far too much lemon. But today we're just going for one slice. Depending on how much you're making, you could use up to a whole small lemon sliced into rounds. But that would be for 3 to 4 pounds of meat. I'm only using about 1.5 pounds. So I'm going to go with one slice. And we let this simmer. It smells wonderful already. So we'll put the lid back on and let it go. Now if you do add too much lemon, because you always want to taste before serving, an easy fix, although it's not perfect, is to add some sugar and a little bit of salt, just to reduce the bitterness from the lemon rind and the acidity from the lemon flesh. Not a perfect solution, but it will actually help make it a lot better than if you didn't. Okay, the stewing process will take a very variable amount of time, depending on how large you cut your pieces of heart, what your temperature in your pot is. Let's give it a taste. Good. We need some sweetness though, and this is where the apricots come in. Put the apricots in, stir it, and we're going to give it 15-20 more minutes. Okay, do not ever forget to taste before it's ready to serve. You don't want a nasty surprise at the table. It's good. There's quite a lot of bitterness, which surprises me. I assume that's from the lemon rind, but let me try a small piece of beef. I might find a small one. That is wonderful. Fall apart tender. Yeah. Let's see if I can get a little piece of the heart. See how tender that is. If you don't like the sharp taste from the lemon rind, because it does provide quite a bitter flavor, just leave the lemon out, or just use some lemon juice. But the meat is wonderful. And the broth is actually quite lovely. Like I say, if you don't like that little bit of a hint of bitter, add some sugar maybe, or just leave the lemon out. Time for dinner. And if we want, we can add a little lemon. So, the first time I made this recipe, I was following someone else's recipe, and didn't have enough spice in it. So I have increased the spice. I also subsequently mistakenly put way too much lemon in it, so it's very bitter. But to correct that, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of salt. I've adjusted the amount of spice upward, which is unusual for me. Put less lemon in. Bitter, if you find it tastes bitter, it's from the lemon rind. But with the apricots in, they sweeten it up, as long as you haven't put too much lemon in, and as long as you cooked it long enough. Heart is one of those things like squid. You either have to sear it really quickly or stew it for a long time. It is tender and flavorful. And the apricot pieces add sweetness. Now I know I've served it with potatoes, but it's usually served with a rice pilaf, which is rice pilaf is a much more typical Moroccan or North African dish than potatoes are. But I did do some lovely grilled vegetables, eggplants, zucchinis, carrots. Thank you so much for watching. I will link my recipe for goulash soup, which is where I show you how to actually clean heart. So anyone that's squeamish, be warned. There is a segment on cleaning the veins from the heart. But heart is very healthy, and not surprisingly, contains a lot of B vitamins, which will help protect your heart. I want to thank everyone that watched. Thank everyone that subscribed, that likes, shares, and comments on my videos. I do try to answer your comments as soon as I see them. Please give this one a like, subscribe, and I'll see you again soon with another video.